throw them at us. Yes.
Hi, my name is Jeff Morgan, and I really appreciate what you're talking about with transparency and how transparency creates trust and so on. And Representative Moody, I liked a lot of what you said too, but I wanted to know about expanding the area of transparency, because I've gone into some of these courts, and the injustices that I have seen in the courts have been awful. And we don't talk about them, and the courts try to keep us out from watching them. Yet in our Texas Constitution, it says the courts shall remain open. So is that something that you also would be interested in bringing forward in an upcoming session, talking about transparency of the judiciary, as well as transparency within law enforcement and people that are incarcerated? Thank you.
Representative, let me repeat that for our viewers that are watching on live stream. Briefly, Representative, the question was, what do you see as something to do with transparency for the court system? I know as a former prosecutor, you've seen this firsthand, so is there anything we can do to make our courts more open?
So I think so. I mean, there's a lot that we can do. So great question. And there was a time that I dabbled with the idea of running for district attorney here in El Paso. It probably was no big secret, but had I gone down that path, one of the things I thought about doing, and there are people that are experts out there in you know, and we've heard a little bit about it in data visualization. So understanding what's going on is part of us doing better and demanding better. But for anyone that doesn't go in the courthouse, if you're not a lawyer or you're not someone who's being represented, I mean, what do you know about what it looks like? And you'll hear what floor you get on. We have 12 floors of the courthouse here in El Paso. What floor you get off on, what court you walk into, determines, a lot of times determines what the outcome can be for you. Whether you have appointed counsel or hired counsel, what your age is, what your what ethnicity you are. I'd love to see those comparisons made public and forward-facing. Right, we have the data, we know the outcome, right? OCA, Office of Court Administration, has all those outcome data. We have arrest data from DPS. We have an enormous amount of data, but we need to make that consumable for the public at large, because unless they're going in and out of the courthouse every day, it's why judicial elections are so important. And for the most part, people don't have a broad education about the judges that they're electing. And more data is better for people to understand what's happening. So if you're a 17-year-old black kid walking into a courtroom on the 5th floor versus the 7th floor for a low-level felony drug offense, what's the outcome? Who's the prosecutor in that court? What's their experience level? Did you get a court-appointed lawyer? Did you get a hired counsel? What is it? How does all that stuff impact how you exit the system? And all those things should be forward-facing, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. Sometimes, there may be bias in the system that we're not recognizing, or that someone doesn't recognize is happening in their very courtroom. And let's if we put that out there, we're not afraid of confronting it, and we'll have better outcomes and we'll have fairer outcomes. So I'm all for it. We have the data. We have an enormous amount of data that we collect. Turning it around and making it consumable is really the challenge. I've seen other states delve into this. But it's going to get uncomfortable for some folks when they realize that maybe there's not, they may not see it that way. And so exposing those uncomfortable truths is probably an important part of this process, and I'm all for it. The mechanics of getting it done probably would be the challenge. The funding to get it done would be the challenge, but having that information in consumable ways available to the public will make people more accountable. And it'll probably make the system fairer. I'm all for it. I think that's a great point.
Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I didn't know I was going to get that opportunity.
I'm a journalist, of course.
Thank you so much. So Representative Moody talked about at one time wanting to run for district attorney, and Eva, you mentioned district attorneys. And from what I understood you saying, it appeared from what you were saying is that district attorneys are not always forthcoming. District attorneys may hide certain truths that may be uncomfortable. Is that a widespread problem of district attorney corruption or hiding of information?
So the question, so we can get it for our viewers on the live stream, is there a widespread problem with corruption and hiding information on the part of district attorneys in Texas?
I will just clarify that the point that I was making was slightly different. It was that I would not expect, in many cases, a local district attorney to bring charges against their local law enforcement, who they frequently partner with on investigations, if there is a missing custodial death report. That just doesn't seem like a likely scenario in my opinion. But as far as widespread corruption and district attorneys hiding information, I think there's a case-by-case basis there that, they're elected and they can run on transparency or not. And I think that, that's not really my wheelhouse.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you so much. There was an issue that I wanted to talk about with it, and I won't mention it right now, just mention it, throw it out there, but there's a lot of times district attorneys are, like interference with child custody issues. They don't prosecute that, and yet it is a state jail felony in Texas, and I wonder why that's the case, that they don't even look at it in many instances.
Sounds like a panel for next year, Kelly.